What is going on, everybody? And welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Nice little five-gamer last day of the NBA All-Star break. Some pretty good, pretty big GPPs. Was hoping for a little bit better night last night from me, but it is what it is. The sun rose this morning, and here we are. Joining me, as always, in his, let's me guess, Shea Weber jersey? No. Slim Cliffy, how you doing?
No, it's I'm doing well. No, it's actually a Mike Camilleri jersey. I got it like over 10 years ago now. I bought it and then he was traded during a game about 6 months later. So that was not a fun time to be a Habs fan, but no, doing well. Interesting slate we have ahead of us. Interesting slate last night. I remember you saying, if Alex Ovechkin gets a hat trick, you can find my body or something like that. He didn't get a hat trick, but 2 goals and an assist and 5 shots. He absolutely smashed. So thank you to the New Jersey Devils for ruining our lives. I didn't really do a whole lot. I had Rangers and Kings. The Rangers look good. Like, you kind of have to give it up to Scott Wedgwood a little bit. I think Zibanejad and Kreider had 3 2-on-1s. All 3, the puck was on Zibanejad's stick, and all 3 he tried to make a pass and it was broken up. So, if you're a guy that can score 40 or 50 goals, maybe shoot the effing puck. That's just me. But we did have a big winner last night. We should say that. It wasn't on DraftKings. It was over on FanDuel. Zig30 in the Discord. Zig30 over on FanDuel. He took down first place in the 333 Monster for $10K. Had Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele didn't do anything, but of course, Kyle Connor, Gabriel Velarde certainly did, and he had that Washington line to go with them. Also had Mikey Anderson on defense. Now, Mikey Anderson didn't do a whole lot. Mikey Anderson, we mentioned that because Mikey Anderson is a guy that we make fun of a lot for DFS purposes, just about the most empty minutes that you'll see, but he needed a really cheap defenseman. Got him just enough points to push him into first place. Like if Mikey Anderson bagels there, Zeke finishes it in second. So in a way, Mikey Anderson won Zeke 30 10K last night on FanDuel. So congrats to him. Real good night. Nice lineup. I saw our buddy Clayton, I think, finished third last night in the $4. That was a night after finishing second. So he's been on a nice little heater. You want to see him finish in first place. One more night left here with good contests, and then we're back to our regularly scheduled programming. So hopefully we can get some more winners here tonight.
Yeah, another nice 555 on DraftKings tonight. It's a fifth of the size of the field, a quarter of the top prize. It's still 50K to first. It's more than 99% of nights on DraftKings. 25K to first in the 15. So they didn't list a 40, but that's just classic DraftKings idiocracy. But what can you do? I don't know. I consciously swapped off Pelech Sorokin at 6:30 because I was like, you know what? Sorokin's going to be chalk. I can't live with myself if a chalk bombs, right? I should have just swapped Sorokin and then left Pelech because he had the OT winner, but ended up going to Saros, Ryan McDonough, which ended up being Lankinen. And that was like a 20-point swap and it ended up costing me. Sorokin went sun running to get to 25 DK points. That's just kind of what happens sometimes. But I just want to get that off my chest. I just need to put that in the universe that not only I don't win every night and I made some bad swaps. I'm human. But we have a nice little 5-gamer here. High totals tonight. Let's get into it. Before we do, just wanted to say thank you guys again for all your support with the affiliate signups, with the super chats, even if it's from my wife on my credit card. It is appreciated. It supports us directly. Thank you guys very much. Let's start off with the Sabres again, shall we? Buffalo Sabres, they 3.4 total. Heading into Montreal, Canadiens have a 3.1 total. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Buffalo ended almost 30% of the field's night on Monday immediately. I think we're going back. Fully correlated Thompson, Tuck, Skinner, 18-3, positive leverage. Going into Montreal, very, very good power play spot here. I wonder if the ownership stays down a little bit because, Toronto's in Arizona and people just got absolutely torched by them last game. I don't know. This is a very, very good power play spot. I'm in on Buffalo 1. I think Buffalo 2 is fine. They're coming in negatively leveraged, which isn't surprising. Cousins on the top power play, Middlestat and Greenway on the second power play. They'll avoid the Suzuki matchup. Once you get past Suzuki, not that the Suzuki matchup's anything to fear, but once you get past them, it is a festival of fuckery, as the Haas likes to say. I think that line is fine. I don't think you need a full stack. I think you go like middle stack Cousins. You can even one-off Cousins. You can add Cousins to a power play stack. I also think that third line is fine if you're trying to power play stack like Toronto or Edmonton. You can do a two-man, Peterka, Benson, Krebs, Peterka, Krebs, Benson, something like that. So, unfortunately, I like the Sabres here again. On the flip side, Slavkovsky has been on a heater, we could say. And let's not pretend that Buffalo is a good team. They got torched by the Ducks. Torched. So I am in on Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky. That is a fully correlated line. It's a good power play spot. I think, that's probably the only line I consider full stacking. I think you can one-off like a New Hook or a Roy or even like a Armia or something like that. But Montreal 1 would be my focus with Montreal. They have a 3.1 total, which is extremely high for Montreal, considering they are pretty top-heavy. Tell your jokes. But my favorite line in this game is Buffalo 1.
Yeah, I'm wondering how many slates we've had this season where Montreal would have a higher implied goal total than the Boston Bruins, because that's exactly what's happening here.
The first one.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. From a lineup standpoint on the Montreal side, obviously I'm wearing my Montreal Canadiens jersey. I am a Montreal Canadiens fan. I get why Josh Anderson is skating with Roy and Newhook. He's kind of like a big body, a protector, kind of like a diet Tom Wilson. I think they're both as effective as each other at this point of their careers. Anderson's probably still worse.
We love to hear
but he won't make that line better at scoring or preventing goals, which is kind of the point of hockey and DFS. And I was looking at the numbers for Newhook and Anderson this season together. They're up at about 145 minutes together at 5-on-5. 42 shot attempts, 4 per 60 minutes, 81 against per 60, 2.1 expected goals for, 4 against per 60. This is not going to be a good line. I think Roy Newhook, Armia probably would have been pretty good. Roy Newhook, Brendan Gallagher would have been fine. I would even have taken a Jesse Ullinen at this point. Josh Anderson is just not going to help them offensively. Now, Josh Anderson is the type of player where he can just create a goal by himself because he's big, he's strong, he's fast for his size. He does like to shoot, even though he hasn't had a ton of shots lately. But he doesn't help create and sustain offense for his teammates, and that's a problem. That's a problem for DFS. That's a problem for the team. It's good news for the Buffalo depth because the Buffalo second and third lines are going to see quite a bit of that matchup. So I agree with you on that Montreal second line. I wouldn't full stack them. I don't hate the idea of stacking them for this reason. Newhook, Anderson, and Armia, they're going to get decent minutes, like probably like 14 to 17, maybe, Newhook gets 17 or 18 because he's on the top power play. Or Josh Roy, sorry. Roy is a shooter. Newhook, I think the important part about Newhook is that he's kind of kept the ball rolling after Sean Monahan got traded. If you look at Montreal's power play numbers with Newhook in Monahan's place, they're almost identical, right? He's fit in very well, taking over Monahan's spot. So, Newhook is fine as a one-off. Josh Anderson, Josh Roy are cheap enough to play them as one-off. I don't like the particular look at that line. And I honestly worry about ice time a little bit because Roy is, quote, on the second line, but he's probably going to skate about 11 minutes. Josh Anderson doesn't always get that much ice time. Newhook does because he's on the power play, but that's about it. Like Armia Gallagher and Jake Evans will probably get more ice time here tonight. They're coming in with a little bit less ownership. They are a little bit cheaper. They are one of those stacks that you can use to go along with an Edmonton power play stack or something like that. And Gallagher and Armia in 100 minutes together, at least passable offensively. 61 shot attempts per 60, 2.8 expected goals per 60. Joel Armia, we talked about this, I think it was last week. He's been shooting a lot. He has 13 straight games with at least 2 shots on goal. He's averaged nearly 3 shots per game in that span, and he's not on the top power play. So, like, he has been shooting a lot. Brendan Gallagher can shoot for his ice time, but injuries are really starting to get to him. Jake Evans, I don't think he's a great player, but he's going to get ice time because they really don't have anybody else in the lineup. Like, I think I would prefer playing Montreal 3 over Montreal 2 as a filler stack here. The Montreal top line, I think, is definitely in play for this reason. Is, we talked about it on Monday, and it's one of the ways Anaheim. One of the reasons why we were kind of high on Anaheim in that game was Buffalo's penalty kill, specifically how much time they had been spending shorthanded. Anaheim didn't score on the power play, but Buffalo above average by minor penalties taken per game going back to January 1st. The Canadians are about league average in drawing power plays per game. Like I said, the Montreal power play has been about the same. And I'm not talking just about goals. I'm talking about like shots and shot attempts and everything else that we look at for the power play has been about the same with Newhook. So I do kind of like Montreal 1 here. What I'm worried about is that they're going to go out against the Buffalo top line. And the Buffalo top line, for as much as they struggle to score offensively, I think it's because they focus more on the defensive game, and they have been good defensively this year, at least league average, which is a lot better than what they were last year. So I do think Montreal is playable. I honestly would probably turn it into just a full power play stack, like just use all 5 guys, add Newhook, put Alex Matheson on the blue line. Like, if Montreal gets there tonight, I think it's going to be because of the power play. It's not going to be because they run Buffalo over at 5-on-5. So Montreal 3 for me as a filler, Montreal top line just fine. I think the real question is what to do on the Buffalo side. Obviously, they do have that 3.4 total. It's tied for the second highest on the slate. Like, it's as much as Anaheim at home to Columbus on a back-to-back. It's as much as the Edmonton Oilers. So they are expecting goals from Buffalo. But the top line, they've been generating well enough this season, 2.9 expected goals, but only 2.5 actual goals per 60. And I mentioned this in our Discord. Like, Tage Thompson is the guy that's been doing a lot of the zone entries for Buffalo, and they're not creating nearly as many scoring chances off his zone entries as they do Jeff Skinner or Alex Tuch. I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know why they're focusing on Tage Thompson. It doesn't even make sense from an offensive point of view because Tage Thompson is the goal scorer on that line. Why do you have him carrying the puck into the zone in the first place? It should be Tuch and it should be Skinner. They're going to go up against Montreal 1. Montreal has been taking a lot of penalties, 3.9 minor penalties per game, going back to January 1st. The penalty kill, not very good. But the Buffalo power play is not very good either. I think if you're asking me to take one or the other in this game, I would take the Montreal top line. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a homer, although I kind of am. But Montreal's last 15 games, that top line's really turned things around. Like you mentioned the Slafkovsky heater, but it's been kind of the entire line. 2.9 expected goals, 3 actual goals per 60 minutes. Slafkovsky, 70th percentile shot rate in that going back 10 games. I do like Montreal 1 over Buffalo 1, but Buffalo 1 perfectly fine to play. I think it's kind of the Buffalo depth that I would prefer here. I don't see either of those Montreal second and third lines being like really that good defensively. And then you avoid the Katie Gooley pairing as well. Cousins, Middlestat, and Greenway, they're coming in over-owned, but they've been, Cousins and Middlestat have been pretty good together this year. 2.6 expected goals for, 2.2 against. I think Cousins and Middlestat, outside of Jeff Skinner, are the best playmakers on this team and can really help set each other up for goals. The problem is like, I don't think they generate a ton of shots. So shot bonuses might be tough to come by, but you get Cousins on the top power play unit. I know they're coming in over leveraged, 11.6% ownership against 5.1% top 2 stack. But on a slate this small, like there aren't a ton of paths to victory. Like you'll probably only see like a couple lines have big nights, 2 or 3 lines, because there's only 10 teams playing. So it's one of those, either, if they don't have a big night, nothing to worry about. If they do have a big night, you either have them or you don't. Like that's kind of what we're running into. So I think there's great matchups at 5-on-5. You get Cousins on the top power play. I like Buffalo 2. Buffalo 1 perfectly fine to play. I'm not going to say don't play them, but I think Buffalo 2 is kind of where I'm leaning here, just for the much easier matchups at 5-on-5. And like Jeff, somebody mentioned it on the show on Monday in our chat. Jeff Skinner, he's been kind of going through it here. He has no points in 5 straight games. He has no goals in 9 straight games. He only has 17 shots in those 9 games, so under 2 per game, averaging fewer than 16 minutes a night. That's very on Jeff Skinner. Like he's not a guy that gets 20 minutes, but you can usually rely on him for like 17 to 18 minutes. Like that's not been the case. So I kind of worry that maybe there's something going on there that the team's not telling us. I'm just speculating. Like there's nothing at all to indicate that other than the drop in shots and drop in ice time. But I'm kind of worried about that. So Buffalo 2 for me, Montreal 1 and 3 on the other side.
A little bit higher on Buffalo 1 just from the power play matchup. I know the power play matchup was really, really good on Monday. I don't want to say like exit out as an outlier, but it was 12:30, which is very, like, hockey players are very ritualistic, I will say. They like their afternoon naps. Who doesn't? But like, I don't know. Like they've played better on the road this season, so a little bit higher on Buffalo 1, but I do agree that Montreal 1 definitely in play here. Philadelphia Flyers with a 3.4 total heading into Chicago. The Blackhawks have a 2.6 total. I was just watching a video with Justin Fields explaining why he unfollowed the Bears on Instagram. Like that's how my day is going. Oh boy, Seth Jones got hurt in morning skate. I don't know if there was an announcement about him.
He's fine.
Yeah, I mean, him being out would probably help them defensively, to be honest. But I also see Rob B got nuked by the bot for spamming emojis. If you do that, Stream Elements will nuke you. You'll be back soon. Don't worry. Looks like they're going with Tippett, Couturier, Cam Atkinson on the top line. Konechny, Farabee, Frost. The only player, there he is. He's back. Got nuked. He's back though. The only player of relevance on the Blackhawks is Nick Foligno. I'm kidding. It's Connor Bedard. Here's the thing, right? Jason Dickinson, Joey Anderson, very good shutdown line. You put Anthony Beauvillier on there, though. Yeah, it might start getting a little leaky in the boat. That being said, I think Couturier, Tippett, Atkinson are fine, but I kind of like the Konechny, Farabee, Frost line a bit more. I wonder if they're doing that to try to get Konechny and Atkinson going. Who knows what Torts is thinking, honestly. But Tippett has been shooting the lights out, and he was kind of taking over on that line for Konechny. Maybe they're trying to get Konechny to lead the second line. I don't know. Anyway, Frost, Farabee, Konechny going to avoid that Dickinson line, probably see some of that Bedard line. And that's the line that I kind of want to take advantage of. I do like that Konechny line. It's coming in at 14.2%. Projected ownership, a little bit negatively leveraged, like 0.8%. The top line coming in with more negative leverage and more ownership at 18.9% projected. So the thing is, like, this isn't a great power play spot. You don't stack the Flyers for the power play anyway. I think you can just full on 5-on-5 stack here. Atkinson hasn't been great. I think you can, if you like Couturier, Tippett, you can play them. Don't get me wrong. I'd just rather get a little bit lower ownership. I'd rather get a better 5-on-5 matchup, and I'd rather get the best player on the Flyers, and that's Travis Konechny. Now, Owen Tippett's having a great season, don't get me wrong, but Travis Konechny is their best player. On the Hawks side, I guess, like, this is a 5-game slate, so I guess you kind of have to consider Chicago 1 here. I don't really want to play them in 1-3, but I think in MME, you definitely can have them in your mix. I wouldn't go, loco, but they're coming in at 5%. I think, at the field, a little bit over is fine. Other than that, like, I don't think there's anything of necessity there. Unless you need some like min-price players and you're throwing out like Taylor Radish, Tyler Johnson. But that's like if you're Edmonton power play stacking and you need like a really, really cheap guy. So Philly 2 is my favorite line in this game, but I definitely think Philly 1 is definitely playable. I think in MME, Chicago 1.
Here's something interesting I was looking at, because I was looking at like penalty kill stats before we came on. Obviously, like, these are two very good penalty killing teams. The Flyers have been that all season. The Blackhawks kind of have been as well. I was looking at the penalty kill stats, and then I kind of ventured over to looking at, all situations, power play, penalty kill, plus even strength. Going back to Christmas, now that's a span of games where most teams have played, 22 to 25 games in that span. The Flyers are bottom 8 in the league by save percentage, worse than teams than like Anaheim and New Jersey. If you look since just January 1st, which I think is a 20-game span for the Flyers, they're bottom 4 in the league. They just don't allow a lot of shots. They're still a great defensive team. I don't think, like, Samuel Ersson, I know he had a kind of a nice run there. This is still an unproven goalie, right? His save percentage for the season has fallen under 900. If you look at just his last his last 9 starts, 870 save percentage. Problem is there's only 29 goals against in those 9 games. Like, if you put a goalie with an 870 save percentage on like Anaheim or Montreal, they're giving up 4 to 5 goals a game. That's not the case because the Flyers are so good defensively. But I think it does make the case for playing some Chicago Blackhawks. Like, I'm not super thrilled about playing Chicago, but a 2.6 total, like, yes, obviously that's low, but we're used to seeing a lot of like 2.1 and 2.2 totals from the Blackhawks, even in decent matchups. And this is a pretty bad matchup, and they have a 2.6. So I think that's kind of telling, first of all. The other thing is like, as you mentioned, not a ton of ownership on Chicago. 5% for the top line, 4.9% top 2 stack. They're perfectly correlated on the power play. This is a bad power play spot for them, but they are perfectly correlated on the power play. They've scored. They're up. Kershev, Foligno, and Bedard as a line are up over 200 minutes together this season. They're getting their brain speed in defensively, but they have scored 3.5 goals per 60 minutes, which is really good. Bedard has 10 shots in 3 games since he returned. So, if you want to one-off Bedard, I think that's perfectly fine, even in what is a tough matchup here. They're not going to send him out against Sean Couturier, so at least you avoid that matchup. And against Sam Ersson, like, you don't need a ton of volume to get a goal here. So, one-off is fine. If you want a 2-man with Kershev or Foligno, I think that's perfectly fine as well. I don't know that I have that much interest in the Chicago depth. I guess like somebody like Jason Dickinson, because he probably will play like 18 minutes or something, is fine as a one-off, but I don't know about full stacking anything. The Chicago second line, 1.9 expected goals without Colin Blackwell there. That's not very good. Chicago third line, 2.1 expected goals for Radish and Tyler Johnson together. They haven't played a ton with Kachuk, but he is not going to help. I can be pretty certain of that.
Just Boris.
So, like, you know, if you want a one-off Dickinson, if you want a one-off Tyler Johnson, like those types of things, I think that's fine. But I'm not stacking the Chicago depth. Like, the only thing I would stack would be the top line or just pass. What to do with the Flyers is interesting because this is not a good power play matchup. Chicago, one, doesn't take a lot of penalties. 3.2 minor penalties taken per game going back to January 1st. That is like amongst the 10th fewest in the league. Chicago power play, like absolutely atrocious. Or the Philly power play, sorry, is absolutely atrocious. The Chicago power play has actually not been that bad. 11 goals per 60 minutes. It is like, again, this is a bad power play matchup, but the Chicago power play hasn't been that bad. But the Philly power play has. And it doesn't matter. Like, that thing is that Titanic. It doesn't matter how you arrange the deck chairs. They're just not doing anything. So you're stacking for the 5-on-5 line. So you're looking for the best lines of 5-on-5. Like, I don't think I want anything from the bottom six from the Flyers. Paling and Scott Lawton and Noah Cates, like, they're very good defensively, but they don't bring a lot offensively. You know, the Philly top line has been really good offensively, even with Cam Atkinson there. I think that's kind of what's important here. 3.6 expected goals per 60, 4 actual goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They're going to get that Dickinson matchup, though. And that Dickinson matchup is a really tough matchup for basically any line going into Chicago. If you just look at the goals against so far this season with Dickinson on the ice, like it's completely different or a lot better for from the rest of the team. With Dickinson on the ice this season at home, 1.4 goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Like, that's just tremendous. The expected goals against is better than league average, and he's had, you know, a whole mess of teammates with him, and he does take the shutdown matchup. So he's playing shutdown roles on a basement team and providing not just good expected goals against, but great goals against. And that's what makes me want to not really play Tippett, Couturier, Atkinson. One-off Tippett is always fine because he's a guy that shoots so much that he can get value alone, even in a tough matchup. I just don't want to full stack them. The full stack I would go with is Philly 2, Konechny, Farabee, and Frost. They're all on the power play together. Again, bad power play matchup, but the correlation does matter because once in a while they do actually score, as you know, as hard as it is to believe. Frost and Konechny, very, very good together this season. 72 shot attempts, 3.2 expected goals per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. Travis Konechny, 9 goals, 22 points in his last 20 games, 3.5 shots per game. Joel Farabee is just a really good kind of like dual threat option. Doesn't shoot a lot, but decent enough shot rate. Good playmaking numbers, not great, but good. And it's just being good across the board can make you a very good NHL player offensively. So I prefer Philly 2. They're not really coming in with that much ownership, 14.2% against a 13.4% top 2 stack. They are perfectly correlated. They're going to avoid that Jason Dickinson matchup for the most part. So, and the rest of the Chicago lineup offers like no defense whatsoever. So, Konechny, Farabee, and Frost is what I like best, like by a mile in this game. But Philly 1, I think, is fine to play as one-offs, like a one-off Atkinson or a one-off Tippett or something like that.
I agree there, and I see we have a Cliffy variant in the chat. There's a Michael Clifford and a Mike Clifford. Where's Alligator Clifford?
Fair enough. For anybody that didn't watch Loki, that's a Loki reference. There's also a Mike, the other Mike Clifford that I know of is one of the reasons why I got some followers on Twitter, because there's an Australian boy band. I think they're called 5 Seconds of Summer, and he's one of the guys in the boy band. So I get a lot of followers because there's people looking for the Mike Clifford that's in a boy band, and I have never, nor I don't think I ever will be in a boy band.
But then they stay because in your profile it says you chew your food like an idiot, and who doesn't? So
yeah,
they
exactly.
They stay for the hockey takes. I lost my train of thought. Oh, You can sign up, the link in the chat, to get the access to the best NHL data and tools in the industry. You get player and ownership projections, top stacks tools, line combinations, and you get access to the premium Discord, which you do now need an active membership to be a part of. They purged the non-active members, or the people who are in there who didn't have memberships. All the Mike Cliffords can come in and join. But yeah, no, like Cliffy and I are always in there. Jake and his wildly sexy jawline is in there. We have lots of sharp minds. Clayton is basically the moderator of that chat, even though he doesn't work for Stochastic. He will read you the rules. He wants to see your hands, just wants to make sure you moisturize. You know what I mean? But like, you can hop in and say you came from the chat, say you came from the show, and we will go from there. Let's move on to the absolute people's main event. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 3.1 total heading into Anaheim. Los Patos de Anaheim. The Ducks have a 3.4 total. This game, like, if this game fell into a black hole and was on the next Star Trek movie, I would appreciate it more than having it on this slate. That being said, Boone Jenner, Johnny Gaudreau, Jack Roslovic, 13-9, fully correlated, highest projected line on the slate at 19%. Like, the thing is, this isn't your mama's Johnny Gaudreau from Calgary. This is Columbus's Johnny Gaudreau, and he is having a pretty bad season. I think Boone Jenner is a nice player. He's not a number one NHL center. That being said, the medicine for all ailments are the Ducks, right? So, like, this is
unless you're the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, damn it, you're right. But anyway, this is a very, very good power play matchup. The Ducks take a boatload of penalties. There are a plethora of good power play spots. Wow, my internet just went crazy. There are a plethora of good power play spots on the slate, but for 13-9, you can get a fully correlated line. The issue is 19% ownership. Now, there's plenty of ways to get different on the slate if you like the Blue Jackets. I don't particularly love the Blue Jackets. I don't think you need a full stack here. I think, one-off Boone Jenner is fine. A one-off Marchenko is fine. I don't want to play a 19% Columbus line back-to-back on the road. Especially where, like, they changed up the power play in-game yesterday against the Kings. Werenski was on there. Bachquist was on there. They were both on there. Then some of them were off. It's just not a very good power play. The Ducks are also in a good power play spot. That's why I think I'd lean towards the Ducks here. They're home. They're a little bit more expensive. But Vetrano, Terry, McTavish have been very good. On Monday, I think they were optimal because I don't think you could fit Minnesota and Vancouver together. I think you needed that line. Now, are we expecting that kind of performance again tonight? No, but for 16-3, a minor negative leverage. You get McTavish and Terry on the top power play. Vetrano shoots, has been shooting less. But the Columbus penalty kill sucks too. So I like Anaheim 2 here. I think you can go to Anaheim 1. They're 12-1. That's kind of a filler line. I don't know if I'd full stack them. I think the thing is, like, you can't really, I mean, you could one off Leo Carlson, right? But like, he just isn't finishing. So I think you add him into like a power play stack, right? You take off a Toronto, you add in Carlson, you save some money there. So like, I prefer the Anaheim side. I think Columbus one's in a great spot. I just, that ownership for that team back-to-back on the road is a bit worrisome for me.
Yeah, I'm going to start by talking about the Columbus side. Like, this line is the most negatively leveraged line on the slate, and it's not even really close. They're also coming in with the most ownership, which, like, do I want to play? Like, it's even a 10-game slate. Do I want to play the highest owned line on the slate coming from the Columbus Blue Jackets on the road on a back-to-back. No, and there's a lot more reasons why than just the ownership. Anaheim picked up Radko Gudas in the offseason, and I think it's been one of the best offseason pickups in the NHL this season. They use him at home in the shutdown matchup. And they also use Leo Carlsson quite a bit at home in the shutdown matchup. They also try to use them on the road in shutdown matchups when they can, but obviously with last change and all that doesn't happen as often. Leo Carlsson and Radko Gudas have played 155 minutes together this season at 5-on-5. 1.5 expected goals against, 1.9 actual goals against per 60 minutes at 5-on-5. They are tremendous defensively. There's just not a lot that happens on the ice against Anaheim when Carlsson is healthy and playing and when Gudas is in the lineup. I noticed Anaheim said that Urho Vakanainen is going to be back in the lineup. Him and Radko Gudas have been an excellent defense pairing. And I don't mean like excellent defensively just for Anaheim. I mean excellent defensively overall. It is a brutal matchup for Columbus going in. Now, yes, they do get a good power play matchup. Anaheim is not a good penalty killing team. They, as Josh said, they do take a lot of penalties. They're not amongst the most penalized going back to January 1st. It's basically Florida and then Anaheim and then a step down, or Florida then Arizona and then a step down, but they are third at 4.4 minor penalties taken per game. Problem is like Columbus has been changing up their power plays quite a bit over the last 10, 12 games because the power play has been pretty bad basically the entire season. I've mentioned this in our Discord, but if you look at Columbus's last game, they started their first power play had Werenski and Bokvist both on the blue line. Their next power play had just Werenski. The next power play after that had just Bokvist, and then the next power play after that had just Werenski and then Bokvist off the second, not even on the second unit. This is a team that's been changed, that just is constantly changing the power plays because almost none of the line combinations work. So this is a team that can't score on the power play on the road in a back-to-back. Rozovic's not even on the top power play unit, so it's not even a perfectly correlated line. And it's a brutal matchup for Columbus 1 at 5-on-5. Like, this is honestly, like we talked about how bad it was against Jason Dickinson. This might be worse. And it's the chalkiest line on the board. I think Columbus 1 is in pretty easy fade for me. So I'm out on Columbus 1. I'm way more in on Columbus 2. The problem with Columbus 2 for much of the season was that they were outscoring their expected goals numbers by quite a bit. Like, they were shooting from distance and they weren't creating much around the net. They're starting to bring that together a little bit. I was looking at the numbers for Marchenko, Chinnikov, and Voronkov just going back to Christmas, because they played quite a bit in the first half of the season, then got broken up and have been back together for about 6 or 7 games now. 2.7 expected goals for per 60 in their last 70 minutes. That's not great, but it's above league average and it's miles better than what they were doing. And they're still scoring 3.7 actual goals per 60 minutes. Chinnikov was the guy moved to the top power play unit yesterday when they were taking the defenseman off. So you definitely only get 2 out of the 3 guys from the top line on the power play unit. And you might also get 2 out of the 3 guys from the second power play unit on the second line. They're only coming in with 5% ownership, lower top 2 stack rate than the top line, but that's fine. The top line's not that much better defensive or offensively than them at 5-on-5. And that Voronkov, Marchenko, Chinnikov line is going to avoid the Carlsson Gudas matchup, which again has been brutal. And the rest of the Anaheim lineup is not that good defensively, particularly the Mason McTavish line. So I really like Columbus 2 here again tonight. Whether you want to stack them or not, I'll leave that up to the individual. I just think that if I'm going to play a cheap line, like not a complete filler line, like an 11K line, but like 13, 14, 15K, Columbus 2 is high up on the board for me because there aren't really a ton of options. So I do like Columbus 2 here. Columbus 3, sorry, I just can't play that Cole Sillinger line. Like, they're just not good. 2.1 expected goals, only 2.6 actual goals per 60 minutes. Cole Sillinger, 12 shots in his last 10 games. Nobody played more than 15 minutes last night. I think Danforth only played 10. If you want a one-off Kent Johnson, because he does get power play time, one-off Cole Sillinger, because he does get lucky once in a while, that's fine. I just don't think I'm full stacking. The only thing I'm full stacking is Columbus. For the Anaheim side, I agree with you. It's the Troy Terry line, going back to that well. Like the Carlson line is going to be in the shutdown matchup. The Carlson line really not jittering that much offensively, especially if they don't have Troy Terry next to them. Only 1.6 expected goals for per 60. That's not good at all. The Mason McTavish line has been better offensively. McTavish, Terry, and Petrano coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, but it's really not that bad for their price. It's a huge total at home. The Columbus penalty kill has been worse than Anaheim's for quite a while now. And Anaheim's been drawing 3.8 minor penalties per game going back to January 1st, the span of 20 games. So I think it's actually as good, if not better, of a power play spot for the Ducks. Those guys might all be on the top power play unit again here today. They were at the end of their last game against Buffalo. Not a ton of ownership. They got a big total. I think there's a lot to like here for that Anaheim top line. So Vetrano, Terry, McTavish is what I like best in this game by quite a bit. But I don't mind that Voronkov line from the Columbus side. That's the line I prefer from the Jackets.
What a game. Toronto Maple Leafs, 3.7 total. Heading into Arizona, the Coyotes have a 2.8. If you live on Narrative Street, Austin Matthews from Arizona, whatever that means. Probably means he was born there or something. But this is another very, very good power play spot. Now, they moved John Tavares off the top power play unit, and he's centering the third line between Bobby McMahon and Nick Robertson. Max Domi is still centering the second line between Nylander and Bertuzzi, and then Matthews, Marner, Knees. Yeah, Knees is also from Arizona. Bunch of Arizona kids in the Toronto lineup. I am not 100% sure why Toronto 2 is coming in with higher ownership than Toronto 1 here. This is a very, very good power play. Like, I get, yeah, 2 guys on each, but that's fine. But, like, Matthews is having an unreal season. That line's coming in very positively leveraged, under 9%. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, but I'm in on Matthews and Marner, despite Marner sucking. He doesn't really suck, but he sucks. The second line's okay, but like I don't want to stack a negatively leveraged Max Domi. Like, yeah, this is a narrative street for him too because he played for Arizona, but he's played for 97 NHL teams at this point, so every game's a revenge game for Max Domi. I think like a one-off Nylander is fine, a two-man with Bertuzzi is fine. I don't really know what to do with Toronto 3. Like they're coming in at like 9%, same as the top line. I'd probably just go to the top line. I understand, like, if you want to use a filler, Tavares, McMahon, Robertson, but none of them are on the top power play. So I'm focusing on the power play guys. Now, Arizona mixed up their lines here. They have Keller, Genther, Cooley, which gets the old engine revving for Mr. H over here. Arizona 2, Bukestad, Krause, Michelli. That line has been good all season. Third line of Schmaltz, Kerfoot, Hayton. That's whatever. And, you know, power play 1, Jason Zucker on the fourth line. This is a good power play spot for Arizona. Arizona top line, Cooley, Genther, Keller, 13-7, coming in with 2.7% projected ownership. I bet you that comes up a little bit. Or maybe I live in a bubble. I probably live in a bubble in our Discord who happens to just drool over the Yotes. But you get Keller and Genther on the top power play unit. Keller's easily their best forward. I like that line. Probably avoids the Matthews matchup. The Max Domi matchup doesn't scare me. The Tavares matchup doesn't scare me. I'm in on Arizona 1. You want to go to Arizona 2 because they've been in all season. They're fully correlated on the second power play unit, which gets time. I think that's fine. So Toronto 1, Toronto power play, top 6 for the Yotes are in play.
Yeah, I think the reason you're not seeing like a ton of ownership on Toronto 1 is just that Nyes is always much, much, much lower owned than Matthews, right? Like Matthews could be 30% here tonight. Nyes will be about 10% or less. Like that's just kind of the problem. The Toronto top line, I mean, obviously they're in play, right? Like this is arguably the best power play matchup on the board, especially considering how good Toronto's power play has generally been. It surprised me that they took Tavares off the power play as well. Like the power play has generally been pretty good. Like I don't think he was necessarily a problem there, but
Keith.
yeah, exactly. Keith is really just mashing buttons, running out the clock until he's fired this summer. The Toronto top line, 3.2 expected goals, 3.7 actual goals per 60, going back to January 1st. Austin Matthews has 35 goals in his last 32 games. It's unbelievable. Averaging 4.5 shots per game. Sometimes we say don't play like a chalky one-off. I think Matthews makes a pretty fine one-off here tonight for a couple reasons. One, Nyes usually doesn't do a lot. He's definitely had some good games, but he usually doesn't do a lot. The other is like there are a lot of good mid-price stacks here in good matchups here tonight. Like we talked about Columbus, we talked about Philly, Buffalo, Montreal. Like there are lines at like 16K that you can play and then stuff in Matthews on top of that, right? So I don't actually hate just one-offing him. Now, Arizona's probably going to use that Kraus line in a shutdown matchup. Their defensive numbers have kind of fallen off as the season's worn on, and I think it's because they have been getting more shutdown matchups. So I don't think it's a bad matchup at 5-on-5 at all for Toronto. Like, if I'm going to play the Leafs here tonight, I can't possibly fathom stacking Nylander, Bertuzzi, Domi, and not playing Austin Matthews. Like, that's just kind of the way I look at it because, like I mentioned earlier, Arizona is the second most penalized team in the league going back to January 1st. And basically since Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving anyway, they've been taking more and more penalties as the season's worn on. Like this is a team that wasn't taking a lot through like the first month, but has basically just been climbing since Halloween and certainly since Thanksgiving. So Toronto should get their fair share of power play opportunities. The Arizona penalty kill is not good at all. So I really do like Toronto 1 here. If you want to play Toronto 2, I think it's fine, like leaving Domi off and then adding Matthews, or just adding Matthews to the stack and, leaving Marner off or something like that. I think that's kind of how I'd approach Toronto 2, but it is Toronto 1 that I like best on that side. Tavares, McMahon, Robertson, that's certainly interesting. This might not surprise you, but when John Tavares doesn't have Nylander or Marner on his wing, he has trouble scoring. It's been the case all season. 1.7 goals for per 60 minutes with Tavares on the ice without those wingers. So for me, it's Toronto 1. If you want to play Toronto 2, I would probably add Austin Matthews to the stack. Like I don't know how you play Toronto here and leave Matthews off. That's just kind of what I'm getting at. On the Arizona side, Cooley and Keller actually have decent numbers together this season without Schmaltz and decent, like Arizona relative decent. 2.6 expected goals for per 60 minutes. Keller and Genther both on the top power play unit. Genther was up near 19 minutes in that last game in this role. Logan Cooley, kind of a tough start, but he's had some pretty good playmaking and transition numbers underlying all that. So I do like Arizona 1, especially where they're not going to go up against Matthews. And the Austin Matthews line is typically pretty good defensively, 2.1 expected goals going back to Christmas. But Domi and Nylander, 2.9 expected goals against. The third line, I don't think will be very good defensively either once we get to a big sample. So Cooley, Keller, and Genther on that top line is what I do like best from the Arizona side. They're not getting a lot of ownership either. 2.7% ownership. The Toronto penalty kill still roughly bottom 10 in the league. And that's something that's basically gone on going back to the middle of December now. Like we're going like over 2 months ago is when the Toronto penalty kill really started to fall off, and it really hasn't gotten a whole lot better. Arizona has been drawing power plays as well. 3.8 minor penalties drawn per game going back to January 1st. So Keller, Genther, and Cooley is what I do like best on that Arizona side. I think if I were to go to the depth, it would be Schmaltz, Kerfoot, and Hayton. Schmaltz and Hayton probably still on the top power play unit. They're definitely going to be seeing depth matchups. I just worry about ice time. I think Keller, Genther, and Cooley are going to get a lot of it. They're also going to get second and third line matchups, and they're also 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. So Keller, Genther, and Cooley, easily what I like best on the Arizona side. On the Toronto side, I think either of the top lines are playable, but no matter which line I play, I would be playing Austin Matthews along with him.
Yeah, I mean, full stacking Toronto 2 without Matthews is cutting off your nose to spite your face. You know what I mean? Like, this is a very, very good power play spot. Austin Matthews legit having an incredible season. If he wasn't having the season he's having, the Leafs would be in big, big trouble. They're already in trouble, but they would be in big, big, big trouble. Yeah. People are posting the BVP, the last. Listen, Vejmelka is good against the Leafs. None of that matters in a micro perspective for DFS in one night, but like it is always interesting. Like, I don't know. I think that's why, like you were saying, how there was heavy line movement towards the Yotes. I think people see these numbers and just start betting the Yotes. So I don't know. But for a DFS micro perspective, it's just hard to quantify because Vejmelka had 3 good games against the Leafs or whatever. That should not change your analysis of the game. As always, just wanted to say thank you again for your support with the affiliate link signups and the super chats. I also do a quick picks MMA video that will be coming out tomorrow for UFC Mexico City. It is a sneaky, sneaky good card. We have MMA Sims. MMA Sims have been great. Very easy to use. I even can upload 150 no issue, which, as you guys know, have been an issue. I love the Sims. If you're looking to try it out, go through that link in the chat. You can do weekly, you can do monthly, but look for my quick picks video. It's free to watch on my Twitter. I will drop the link below to the Sims underneath my video. Probably be out around 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night. That's just the best time for me to get it recorded. So be on the lookout for that. Let's get to the last game of the night. Boston Bruins with a 3 total heading into Edmonton. The Oilers have a 3.4. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins did not practice this morning. They said he's questionable with an illness. They ran lines without him in morning skate, and it was Fogle, McDavid, Hyman, Kane, Draisaitl, McLeod, Janmark, Holloway, Perry. Now, if Nugent-Hopkins does play, there's 2 logical landing spots for him, right? It would be where Fogle is, and then Fogle will take the spot of McLeod, or Ryan Nugent-Hopkins just takes the spot of McLeod. But it sounds like he's trending towards not playing. Again, this is one of the last games of the night, and it is, kind of important because it is the Oilers, but they did run lines without him. And it's kind of hard to tell with these guys if they're placeholders or they're actually going to be there. You know what I mean? Because both of those guys have played in those spots at times this season. Now, I don't think it changes the analysis much. I still like Fogle. Fogel's kind of like the Alex Holtz of the Oilers. The dude is one of their best 5-on-5 players. I like that line. It doesn't really matter what the matchup is for me going the other way. If they get the Pastrnak line, fine. That line's pretty good defensively. But that Charlie Coyle, Brad Marchand line, yeah. And McDavid's going to see every single line from Boston. There's no Bergeron coming back. You know what I mean? So there is no ownership on Edmonton here tonight. On a 5-game slate, you might get McDavid under 10%. That is horrifying if you're fading him because he could just nuke a slate no matter what. If Fogel's there, I think you can full stack that line. He gives you some cost savings to go do your thing. If it is Nugent-Hopkins there, that does get pricey, and that could be an issue if you have to swap. But maybe you can build with Draisaitl and then adjust with a late defenseman as well. But I'm in on Edmonton here. At least Edmonton won. Edmonton 2, I think, Draisaitl one off, add him into a power play stack, go about your day. On the other side, again, with this Boston ownership, Pastrnak, Zacha, DeBrusk, 15.8% top 2 stack, 13% projected ownership. It is positive leverage, but this isn't the Edmonton team under their old coach. Since Knobloch took over, they've been very good defensively. They have a great penalty kill. I don't have a tremendous amount of interest in full stacking Boston here. Yeah, you want a one-off Pastrnak? I'm a broken record when it comes to Boston. I don't like the ownership because Zacha is just the guy. He is just a vessel for DFS on that line. He is like Yori Laterra on that line. He's a better real-life player than Yori Laterra, but for DFS purposes, he's Yori Laterra. So, I think a one-off Pasternak's fine. You can add him in with Jake DeBrusk. You can do Pastrnak, Charlie McAvoy, something like that. But, I don't have a ton of interest in Boston here tonight, despite the total. I think, I like picking on Edmonton earlier in the season, but after Knobloch took over, it is a completely different team, especially defensively. So, while I think, in MME, Boston 1's fine, I don't have a ton of interest in single entry.
So I guess the question is if Nugent Hopkins is out, who would probably take his spot? Because Nugent Hopkins hasn't missed a game in 3 seasons. Last time he missed a game was the 21-22 season. So we can't even go back to, and it would be a different coach anyway. Nugent Hopkins left-handed, so it could be Warren Fogle, could be Evander Kane. Do they give somebody I don't think Dylan Holloway would get moved up, but maybe it's Dylan Holloway.
They could plot Corey Perry in front of the net and change completely what they're doing.
Yeah, they could do that too. Corey Perry could just go to the front because I think that's important. But here's something I was looking at when I was looking at power play penalty kill stuff. The Edmonton Oilers in calendar 2024 are drawing the 4th fewest penalties of any team in the league. Only Seattle, San Jose, and the New York Islanders have been drawing fewer penalties than the Oilers. How does this Oilers team draw fewer penalties than the Washington goddamn Capitals? The Capitals can't even skate. Who the hell's taking a penalty against them? It's just mind-boggling that they're not drawing penalties. Maybe the refs have a little bit on the under. Who knows? The Boston penalty kill had really not been that great. Boston typically does take a lot of penalties. That's one of the reasons why Edmonton not drawing a lot of power plays kind of sucks. Your point about Fogle is a good one. The thing with Fogle is he's not bad defensively. He's not that good, but he's not bad defensively. He's good at kind of creating offense around the net, but he's not a good playmaker. And that's kind of what Nugent Hopkins brings to that line. Now, you don't need a good playmaker when you have Connor McDavid, obviously. It just gives McDavid more responsibility. But I kind of do like Edmonton 1 here. There's not a lot that really worries me. If you put McDavid and Hyman with Fogle, you could end up kind of screwed with having to make a swap. But the nice thing is only 2 games start early. The Anaheim, Arizona game and then this game all start at 10 o'clock Eastern. So there are changes you can make, especially with Toronto on the board. There are Edmonton to Toronto swaps that you could be making, right? If there's some really weird line combinations. So I think Edmonton 1 is perfectly playable here. They're going to go out probably a fair bit against the Boston top line. But as we mentioned, when Marchand and Pastrnak are split up, that's when Boston's better defensively. But with Warren Fogle being as cheap as he is, I don't think it's a big enough drop off from Nugent Hopkins to Fogle to be worried, to really worry yourselves where you're saving $2,000. That's a lot on a slate like this. So I really do like Edmonton 1. Edmonton 2, I don't think Ryan McLeod's a good. I don't know why they ever took Warren Fogle off that line, first of all. The other thing is I don't imagine Ryan McLeod stays there very long. I think I would for me, it's Edmonton 1 if you want to stack the Edmonton power play, whatever. But the Edmonton top line is the only line that I have any real confidence in to, kind of create a lot of offense. Draisaitl and Evander Kane creating less offense without Warren Fogle. Evander Kane does have 31 shots in his last 10 games, but Draisaitl's not shooting. Draisaitl has more points. He has 18 points in his last 10 games. He only has 17 shots. He has more points than shots in his last 10 games. It's absolutely bananas. So with him not shooting and Boston not that bad defensively, I think it's Edmonton 1 for me. On the Boston side, like I just don't have a lot of interest. You went over how good Edmonton has been defensively since Knobloch took over. Like I think they were fine defensively before that. They just had a couple structural issues to fix. That Boston top line coming in with reasonable ownership, like 13% ownership for Boston 1 here tonight is very high when you're going into Edmonton, because Edmonton has a very good penalty kill, as you mentioned. The defense is very, very good as well. You look at other lines in that price range, like I would, I hate to say it, I'd probably rather play the Buffalo or Montreal top lines than I would Boston 1 here at similar ownership. So I'm probably out on Boston. For me, this is an Edmonton 1 game tonight. I even do like having Fogle on the top line. I think he brings a nice net front dimension. That'll mix well with Zach Hyman and just kind of let Connor McDavid do his thing. So Edmonton 1 for me in this game.
Yeah, agreed. That is the 5 game. Like all 5 games are playable tonight. No shows after us, obviously. NBA comes back tomorrow. Let's talk about some blue liners, shall we? Defenseman. Top of the board, Rasmus Dahlin, 7,300. I think he's squarely in play. That dude plays like half an hour.
By the way,
every night.
Sorry. I forgot to mention Hampus Lindholm is out for Boston tonight as well, and that takes probably their best defensive defenseman, if not their second best out of the lineup. So another reason to play Edmonton.
Yeah, they called up Mason Lowry, I think, or something like that. But that is a big downgrade defensively. But yeah. Rasmus Dahlin, top of the board, 7,300. The dude just never leaves the ice. So I think he is firmly in play. After that, I think Bouchard's fine. But the other 2 guys that stick out in that top range are Mike Matheson and Zach Werenski. Then you start getting into the mid-range. There really aren't that many options in the mid-range. I'll let you talk about them. And who else in the top range do you like?
Yeah, Dahlin and Werenski are the ones that stick out, but I don't think I'm too high, that high on Columbus here. So for me, I think it's Dahlin that really sticks out amongst the expensive guys. Matheson, if you want to just stack him with Montreal power play, or just I think 2-man stacking with Alex Newhook is honestly fun as well. But Dahlin is the defenseman that I like best on the board here tonight. In the mid price range, Timothy Liljegren's still in the top power play. A really good power play matchup, so he's still fine. Radko Gudas, Columbus can generate shots. Gudas will get ice time against Columbus, so he's fine. Caden Gooley, like Buffalo has been generating. There are games where Buffalo puts up 40 to 50 shots. Like Caden Gooley's been playing 21, 22 minutes regularly. He might have to block a lot of shots here tonight. I think he's fine on DraftKings. Travis Sanheim, he typically gets the most ice time on the Philly blue line. It's not a good power play matchup, so I don't think you have to play Drysdale here. I think it's Sanheim for me. I prefer from Philly. There are a lot of cheap guys in play. Henry Jokiharju, he's been getting a lot more minutes with Owen Power and Matthias Samuelsson hurt for Buffalo. Adam Bokvist has been getting power play time for Columbus. It's still their power play sucks, but so does the Anaheim penalty kill. JJ Moser for Arizona, he usually plays the second most minutes behind Sean Durzi. Not really a terrible matchup. Alex Vlasic for Chicago. If you're on DraftKings, you might have to block a lot of shots here again tonight. And both Pavel Mintyukov and Cam Fowler from Anaheim for taking advantage of a pretty bad Columbus penalty kill. If you need a min-price punt, your brother Jordan Harris is back in the lineup for Montreal. He's 2,500 on DraftKings, and I'll mention Jackson Lacombe as well for Anaheim. He's down under 3K, so if you need a punty type defenseman on DraftKings, I don't mind him.
Yeah, Lacombe played 22 minutes against Buffalo the other day, like randomly. So Werenski only played 19 minutes last night, by the way. So buyer beware. I mean, it is a back-to-back, so maybe they limited the minutes, but still, bit worrisome. Goalies. Do we have to play goalie tonight?
Yeah.
Honestly, like I wish DraftKings had a feature. It's like pay $8,500 for 15 DraftKings points. I would take that and run on this slate. Ilya Samsonov at the top at 8,400. Then you have the Philly starter at 8,300. John Gibson, 8,100. You have Stewie Skinner, who's probably the guy I would spend up for if I was spending up at 8K. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, if he starts, is all right at 7,900. I think if you're fading Buffalo, Montembeault would be the cheap guy. I guess you could play Vejmelka, but like that is a bit crazy. I wish it was Mrazek because I would have been interested in Mrazek. Soderblom doesn't do too much for me. I guess you could play Tarasov as well. This slate, if you like somebody, you play him.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I didn't realize that you'd finished there. Sam Montembeault is at the top of the board for me. One is he has a good price. Two, Buffalo's power play sucks, and that's typically where Montreal gets in trouble, is allowing power play goals against. So I do like Montembeault. Whoever ends up starting for Anaheim, it does look like John Gibson is confirmed. So him at home, he's probably the expensive guy that I would look to because, again, I'm not worried about the Columbus power play, and that just means more 5-on-5 shots for him. I think Vejmelka is fine to play at 7K, but really, like, if you're going to go down and go like play one of the super cheap goalies, I would probably lean to I think it's Ullmark tonight for Boston, right? Because Swayman started against Dallas. I would probably go to Ullmark because, like, if Nugent Hopkins is out and Edmonton's not drawing any power plays at all, like that's really the biggest worry about Edmonton is their power play. I don't mind kind of riding the lightning with Ullmark. I know playing a goal against Connor McDavid is good, would be terrifying, but I think I would honestly, I would probably rather play him than Soderblom. I'd rather play him than whoever I think it's Tarasov in net tonight for Columbus. I'd rather play him than Tarasov. So Montembeault, I think, is just clearly my number one play here. That it feels like a homer take, but it is what it is. So Montembeault or Gibson for me.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could even have a skater or two from Buffalo against Montembeault on this slate. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
You don't roster the goalies and expect a 50 save shutout unless you're Che Guevara in our chat. He expects 50 save shutouts every night. But I think this is a slate where you can have a skater or two against your goalie. It's not a big deal, especially on this slate where goalies suck. Goalies suck every slate, but is especially sucky tonight. Who do you like him for your hat trick pick?
Funny enough, I said I like Sam Montembeault. My hat trick pick is Dylan Cousins.
Yes. No, Cousins. Yeah, how many Cousins against Montembeault lineups there's going to be now? Should we get spicy? I'm going to go Troy Terry.
That's fine.
Yeah.
No need to go. I mean, this whole slate is spicy. So, like, yeah. I think there's enough spiciness elsewhere. You don't really need it right here.
Yeah, I was going to do something incredibly stupid, but we'll save that for the next time for my hat trick pick. Like, I think Terry is one of the more reasonable hat trick picks I've had. Although last slate I had Velarde, and that was yesterday, and that was pretty good. So, speaking of the next show, we'll be back tomorrow. I think it's an 11-game slate. It's a bigger slate. I don't know why they saved the bigger slates until NBA is coming back, but the NHL is going to NHL. Avery wants to say something, so he's gonna grace you with his presence.
Hey, subscribe to my channel, or else something bad will happen to you at night.
Okay. Yeah, I'll drop his channel on my Twitter, and you can go subscribe to him. But yeah, good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you in the Discord. Au revoir.
Good luck tonight, everybody.